morning, everyone. As you can see, the person standing in front of you is a new face. As such, I'd like to introduce myself first before anything else. I go by the name Leonard Patrick Yapit. It's Leonard with an E, not Leonard with an I, and definitely not with an O. Let's just make ourselves clear because most people tend to mispronounce my name. And I'd like my students to actually know how to pronounce it because that will build our relationship as well. You can call me Mr. Yapit or you can call me Sir Leonard. It depends actually to what you prefer because I'd like every one of you to be comfortable with me and to have some connection, a certain connection that will help us build a smooth discussion in every session that we will have. Of course, that goes without saying that you can call me or consider me as your friend, but of course, we have to keep the respect and the necessary boundaries on the line because, as established, I may be a friend or I may be considered as someone you can talk to whenever you are in need, but I am still your teacher and your instructor for your English subject. Before anything else, I'd like for us to partake into a short morning prayer in which we ask for the guidance of the Almighty God and the assistance for whatever we may accomplish for today. Okay, Miss Valentong, please do the honor. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Alright, now that we have asked for the guidance of our Almighty God, I'd like for us to be partaking into a warm-up exercise. It's not necessary for an exercise. It's just like for our blood to be pumped, for our nerves to be warmed, so that in our discussion, our body is ready to take on the challenge and get our mind ready for the lesson that we will be discussing about. As such, I'd like for us to have at least 8 jumping jacks. Is that amenable to all of you guys? Alright. It seems that all of you is ready to take on the challenge of this day. As such, on my cue, we will do the jumping jacks. 3, 2, 1, jump. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright. Since we have already warmed ourselves up and have actually considered the necessity of this day, then we will proceed to checking the attendance. As you can see in this sheet, this will be roaming around the room, and there's no need for you to cause a commotion because this will eventually go to your designated space. Basically, you will just write your name and your signature and the timestamp by which the signature has been signed. I have already wrote your section, which is grade 9 Kadakilaan, above this sheet. So you just have to go through your names. Let's go first with this row here. Just do the honor of passing through the other lines. And while the attendance sheet is roaming around the room, of course, we will have to proceed in order for us to save the time and have a more meaningful and interactive session. First, I'd like to ask if anyone here remembers what has transcribed in the previous discussion. Alright, Mr. Nasalanta, it seems that you have some sharing or some ideas that you want to disclose in here. Very good. It seems that you truly understand what we have talked about last time. As you have mentioned, the topic that has been transcribed is about verbs and how it is connected through other things such as movies, literatures, or the likes. As you have also mentioned the masterpiece of George Miller's The Happy Feet and how it inculcate upon the learners, upon the watchers, that love, loyalty, and perseverance goes a long way. That's a very good insight because not only did you remember what we have been able to talk upon, but also include a thought in which you are aware of, in which is only aligned to your perspective. And that's something to be appreciated because most of the time people or learners seem to be pushed or shoved into the idea that learning only comes by reading, by memorizing lines after lines after lines, which is, of course, so exhausting. We don't condone if that's the way they learn, but that's just an narrowing perspective because I think learning must come into a person, into an individual, in which they are to inculcate or to incorporate whatever thoughts or whatever intricacy that they have. And I think that's something you possess. So let's give Mr. Nasalanta a warm up applause for that wonderful answer. Is there anyone else who'd like to share their thoughts? All right, Mr. Balan. That seems to be um, a wonderful answer as well. But of course, we will have to proceed now to our next activity. Very good, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge your participation because it makes the class a lot more interactive and a lot more, what they call this, smooth. As I was saying, the activity that we'll be doing is something that you may have heard about, but we will do it with a twist. Of course, that's always what we look forward to, a twist in which we are going to challenge. We will be challenged upon what types of learning and what types of things that we want to put into our head. This activity is called Solve Me to Complete Me. I know you already have an idea of what integration or discipline is inculcated or incorporated in this kind of activity because solve me. It's obviously mathematics. And although I know some of you here are worried of the subject because of some reasons, or who wouldn't, because I know for a fact how mathematics can be hard and difficult to deal with. I mean, diving into the art of variables and numbers is not something anyone could actually do. As a joke from our discussions last meeting, I guess, a student said that he indeed loved math, although the case cannot be said for the subject itself. I like to talk about that joke sometimes because it's true. No matter how you love something, if that something doesn't love you back, then that's hardly going to matter. But anyway, even if mathematics doesn't love us, we still have to talk about it because it's an integral part of our life. Anywhere you go, mathematics is existing. When you buy something, you will have to calculate the amount of things that you have bought or the change that you may have back. As such, I'd like to see if you have a knowledge or at least retained the knowledge by which you have already talked about. As I was saying, this activity deals about math. And regardless of whether we love math or not, we have to do this activity. Do we agree, class? Alright, it seems that you're up to the challenge, and I like this here. This is what we came here for. Take on the challenge and just do it anyway, even if you don't like to, or even if you don't know how to. Because at the end of the day, if you don't try something, you won't know if that something actually is compatible into your soul. As such, here is the official mechanics. So I will be giving you sheets in which a puzzle or a puzzle a puzzle picture is embedded. Of course, there is a mathematical equation to be solved that is written below the pages. It, um, the x that you should use is according to the numbers of the group you are in. For example, group 1 will have 1 as the x, group 2 as 2 as the x, and so on and so forth. That's actually something that you must always remember. Always take note the given in every equation because that's something that will help you upon solving and learning what this problem is about. By solving the mathematical equation, each correct answer will merit you a word which will help you unravel the nature of the picture that has been given to you. Of course, this goes without saying that every one of you holds a different picture to unravel. But this is a race. That's the challenge. You will have to solve into Think quickly and swiftly at that so that you can answer and so that you can win. The first one to present, the first group to present, will be the declared winner. Are you ready? All right. On my cue, three, two, one. Let the race begin. Time's up, everyone. I see that every one of you has really put their best into this activity. I'd like to see that kind of soul, that competitive soul who will go through any hoops just to attain the crown, just to win. Because although competitiveness is something that is most often bashed by people who don't understand how it works, that is something that everyone must embody. I'm not saying that you should drag other people down just for you to win. I'm saying that you should always feel the need to go beyond your limit, to go beyond what you know, and to see whether you can do something or not. Because in that way, we can acknowledge the fact that there are something more to us than just meets the eye. Anyway, for this activity, I'd like to hear from the group one first. Oh no, let's go with the lineup of the persons who are able to finish first. So let's go with the group three, followed by group two, one, and four. Alright, what a splendid performance is. It seems that I really won't have to worry whether you can integrate this discipline to the other discipline because you could do it pretty well if you try, if you put your heart and soul to it. So, before we proceed, I'd like to have some questions pondered about and talk about because I'd like to hear your thoughts and how you feel about the matter that we just have had. First, I'd like to ask Mr. Raquel about what the activity has put through your heart. All right, that's a very good insight you have there. It's actually true in a way that whenever activities are incorporated, the session becomes lighthearted and that everyone is able to acknowledge that there is really no threat in learning. And that's something that I want you all to remember because education in itself is a lot more fun when you put your heart and soul to it. When you think about it, not in a way that will burden your soul, not in a way that will make you feel that the challenges you are taking is only repetitive, the challenges you are taking are only going to be of use whenever you are at school. Because no, whatever you learn here is actually applicable to every aspect of life. And you have to remember that because that's just how life goes. Going back to the puzzle, I'd like to know what you think would be the topic based on the activity. Alright, Mr. Nasalanta, you have such a wonderful thought out there. And I think that's good and that's really insightful of you. As you have said, what we will be talking about is the intricacies and the natures of verbals. I don't like to spoil it for you, but verbals is actually a form of verb that can act as a noun, adjective, or an adverb. But more to that later. First, I'd like to know if everyone is all ready for the subject that we will be talking about. Alright, it seems that you really are born to be ready. Okay, before anything else, I'd like first to disclose the objective of today's discussion. This is just so we will be guided, or we would have an outline of how this session would go. The first objective is actually just to identify the different types of verbals and how verbals nature is used and how they can be incorporated in a sentence. The second objective goes to the way in which verbals are incorporated into a performance-based scheme such as one act play or a skit or a sketch. And then lastly, we have the integration or the identification of the verbal's nature and how it is significant into the sentence making. Did everyone understand? Yes, of course. That's how I like this class because everyone is really listening and incorporating the details that has been inculcated to them. All right. Before we go right through the formal discussion, I'd like first for us to have a short activity. The short activity is called Cross My Words Out, and it is actually familiar to all of you. I know that because this has been done over and over again when we were still children. We'll just have to cross out relative words from the box that has a lot of distractors such as letters. And um, the words that you must identify is already provided just below the pages. That and that word will have to be mashed up with messed up definitions that will be provided as well. Once done, the group may post their sheets in the blackboard, and you will only have 5 minutes to actually do the activity. As my words understood? Alright, on my cue, let this activity begin. Three, two, one. Time's up, everyone. And now, I would like to see how you would present your answers into the board. Alright, that was a wonderful presentation, everyone. Before we go through and move on with this activity, I'd like to hear some of your thoughts and what you've been able to learn from this activity alone. Okay, Mr. Araneta, you may have the floor. All right, it seems that you truly understand what the topic entails, and that's something that I admire about you because you are able to actually learn something from just a few encounters. Okay, may I hear from the other groups who would want to share? Okay, Mr. Violan, you can have the floor. All right. It seems that you really understand the topic and you value teamwork more than ever. It seems that you understand how to do things with other people and how you could be able to acknowledge their potentials into making that project work. All right. I acknowledge your answer, Mr. Violan. And of course, I'd also like to know how you were able to come up with the messed up definitions and align them to the words they are in relation. Uh, of course, that goes without saying. And I also would like to know how you were able to cross out the words from the many distractors that has been put in that table. All right, what a good technique indeed. Yes, Miss Sally, we're raising your hand. Yes, of course, that's correct, Miss Sally. You also have an idea of what to do and what is the topic about. All right. It seems that everyone is already ready for the official discussion of today's session. All right. For everyone's benefit, let us now delve into the magic of the topic that we should have been discussing since earlier. Now that we've been acquainted to the topic that we will be discussing, let us now focus into the discourse. We will be talking about the verbals. Verbals is a form of verb that does not function as an action word alone. It functions into three ways, which makes it rather special. First function is that it can be a noun, adjective, or an adverb. As you know, noun is a word that refers to things, place, idea, or anything. And then we have the adjective, which modifies the noun. And then for the adverbs, which modifies the verb. And then we have those things as the main center of the verbals that functions well. As I have said, there are three types of verbals. That is gerunds, infinitives, and participles. ones. What is this bird? It seems so intricate, unique in itself, but it is defined as a verb forms ending in ing, which is identical to the present participle, although they differ in the way that they function. The main difference of gerunds and the present participle is the fact that gerunds function as a noun while the other acts like a verb or an adjective. Examples of gerunds are speaking, jogging, skimming, leisuring, reading, and jumping. Gerunds can be used in a lot of ways. I have underlined five uses of it. First one is the subject of the sentence. The subject is the person, place, or a thing performing the action of the sentence. For example, reading is a very productive hobby. Then gerunds can also be used as a subjective complement. A subjective complement is a word or phrase following a linking verb and it identifies the subject. For example, studying is searching for the unknown. Then we have the direct object. Direct object is used as a word or phrase that receive the action. So, for example, my sister Lucia dislikes eating sweets. The direct object here is eating sweets. As I was saying, we can also use gerund as the object of the preposition. Object of preposition is defined as a noun working with a preposition to form a prepositional phrase. For example, he was reprimanded for writing on the classroom wall. The object of the preposition is writing on the classroom wall, and the proposition is the for. Then we can also use gerunds as a positive. A positive is a noun immediately following and renames another noun in order to clarify or classify it. For example, my mother's passion painting makes her happy and fulfilled. The a positive here is the painting because it modifies and renames the noun. The next function that we will be talking about is the infinitives. Infinitives are verbals introduced by the preposition to plus simple or base form of the verb. They are used as nouns, adjectives, and adverbs. So example, to respect, to observe, to travel, to wear, to be, and to see. Of course, infinitives can be used into three ways as well. It can be a noun, adjective, or an adverb. For noun, we have five identification. For example, an infinitive can become a subject, like to wear a smile when upset is difficult. The subject here is to wear, which makes the wear a noun. Then we go with the predicate noun, which is it is a function that follows a linking verbs, provides further info to the subject, and describes a state of being. For example, to obey is to listen. Then there is also a direct object, which goes as what has been transcribed earlier as well. For example, my friend likes to paint about nature. The last two function of an infinitive that is a noun is the object of the preposition and the appositive. For the object of the preposition, we can have an example like new to the school, Carlos was about to transfer to the other school. Then for the appositive, we have his father gave him a choice to learn to adjust. For the adjective, for example, the first person to know about his child's behavior are the parents. To know is an adjective because it modifies the subject, which the noun, which is the first person. Then we go to the adverb. The adverb are, as said earlier, modifiers of the verbs. For example, they are responsible to look after their children's well-being, especially when they are at home. So now we go and discuss the last function of a verbal. That is the participles. A participle is a verbal adjective that is used to describe nouns and pronouns. It can either be present or past participle. It is used in two purposes. One is to turn the verb into an adjective to modify nouns. Then the other one is to connect with auxiliary verbs and create different tenses. Auxiliary verbs is just helping verbs. Example for the participle is motivate and motivate, which can be transposed to motivating. That's for the present tense. Then we have mark and marked for the past participle. The present participle is formed by adding ing to the present tense of the verb, just like how we've established earlier. And then, for example, we have motivate, and when we transpose it to motivating, if we incorporate it into sentence, it would go this way. My family is my motivating factor to work hard. Then the past participle of a regular verb are formed by adding d or ed to its base form. For example, mark or marked. For it to be transposed into a sentence, it only goes this way. Only these marked items are usable. Then the past participle of some irregular verbs can also take some forms that are not familiar. For example, read, it cannot be transposed to readed or reading because it can only stay in its usual form, in its base form, which is read. So, for example, my friend read the article yesterday. Regardless of when the action happened, read can only remain as what it was. Some past participle of some regular verbs are the same as their past tense form. For example, we have build. Its past tense is built, and then its past participle is built as well. Let's have it as in a sentence. The man is on the run because of his stolen identity. Then we have the last slide or the last part, which is the past participle of some irregular verbs change their forms or spellings. For example, we have fall. From being in the form fell from past tense, it can become fallen into the past participle. Example in the sentence is she was able to step in on the broken glass. So now that we've discussed the three different types of verbals, we go to the topic of verbal phrases. Although verbals may consist of a single word, objects, complements, and modifiers may be added to the original participle, gerund, or infinitive to make it into a verbal phrase. We can, into the object, there are two different types that we can use. For example, we have the direct object and the indirect object. The direct object is, as we've been discussing earlier, is the receiver of the action of the verb. And for the indirect object, it is a name to the noun that refers to whom or for whom the action was done. For example, this sentence would be a direct object. Eating the pizza was no small task. The pizza is the subject or the direct object of the gerund eating. It answers the question eating what. Whereas an indirect object is a name to the nouns to whom or for whom the action was done. For example, giving her those roses was the hardest thing I've ever done. The noun roses is the direct object of the verb giving. It answers the questions giving what. The pronoun her, on the other hand, is the indirect object because it answers the question to whom. Then we have the complement. Complements only rename or define nouns, the subject or the object in the sentence. For example, being the oldest child, she did a lot of free babysitting. The noun child is the complement of the subject of the sentence she. Then we have the modifier. Although verbals are modifiers, they may also take modifiers themselves. These modifiers describes or clarify the verbs that has been used. I mean the verbals that has been used. For example, eating quickly, I had no time to talk. Quickly describes or clarify the question to how the action has been done.
Go.
Alright, since we have already discussed the natures and the types of verbals, we also have to talk about the common errors that is usually violated by writers. The first common error is sentence fragment. From the word itself, it is verbal phrases um, that are used by writers to stand alone into a sentence, which is very wrong because a verbal cannot stand on its own. It needs a complementary phrases to actually make sense. For example, making our party complete with a period, Aaron brought the cake. To fix that problem, you just have to change the period into a comma. So it should go as making our party complete, Aaron brought the cake. Another common error that we must discuss is the misplaced modifier. Sometimes a verbal might be located too far from the word it modifies, which is very wrong in a sense because it makes the sentence a lot more confusing.
Go.
For example, Joe ate the chicken sitting on the chair. The sentence is confusing in that we don't know what the sitting modifies. So could it be Joe or the chicken? So to fix this problem, we'll have to readjust the sentence into sitting on the chair. Joe ate the chicken. The last common error that we must talk about is the dangling modifiers. What is this? The dangling modifier is defined when a word that describes the verbal or the sentence is not around. That means it is hanging and making the sentence a lot more confusing than it should. For example, having sent the letter overnight, it will probably arrive on time. So the question here is who has sent the letter? And since the subject is it, the letter becomes the center of the sentence. But having sent the letter overnight cannot modify the letter, which means that the sender is not in the sentence. So if we want to correct this error, we will have to write the sentence this way. Having sent the letter overnight, we think it will arrive on time. The subject of the verbs we is included in the sentence, which makes it apparent that the receiver or the one who's going to receive the letter is we. To surmise, subject, adjective, and direct object is something by which the verbals are held in high regards. Its key significance is making writing varied and concise. So basically speaking, verbals are important to make your writings more understandable to the readers. So, as such, I want to ask Mr. Nadarang if he had thoughts or key takeaways to the discussion. All right, you seem to have understood and comprehended what we have just talked about because you were able to identify and give your own examples over the types of the verbals that has been inculcated to you right now. Okay. Although I understand and I am satisfied with Mr. Nadarang's answer, I would like to call another person to actually identify the different common errors that has been discussed and give examples if you may. Yes, Mr. Kadayong, you've been raising your hand. All right. It seems that you truly understand what have been discussed right now, and I am amazed at how fast you can learn and how amazing your retaining abilities are. As such, let us all give ourselves a warm black-eyed peas clap. Unfamiliar? It's actually just just clapping. Then you raise both your fist in the air like you're punching something, and then you sort of raise your hand above your head, and that's all. I'll demonstrate it first for you, and then we all demonstrate it all together. So it goes this way: clap and boom and pow. Clap, boom and boom and pow. All right. On my cue, let's do it all together. Three, two, one. Clap, boom and pow. Clap and boom and pow. Are there no more clarifications about the discussions, confusions, and violent reactions to the discussions? All right. It seems that everyone already understood. So now let us have our main activity for the day. It is called a short interactive sketch. It's actually just a sketch, and you will be grouped into five members. Preferably, two of you will be writers and three will be the actors, because short script is necessary to be submitted. This is in a way for you to understand truly the use of the verbals. Of course, you can use props that are present in the classroom. Use your imaginations to make it a lot more better than it usually would be. The skit must also have the necessary inclusion of verbals and its different types. Now, this is where the script um, becomes a lot more significant, because you will have to annotate the script and show me the verbals that has been used in your dialogues. For example, you must circle gerunds, scratch the words if it's infinitives, and draw a heart if it's participles. The performance should only last for 5 minutes, and once done, the first group to volunteer will be given extra 5 points for their overall score. So again, the challenge here is time. You must race to win and win to race. But of course, before we proceed to the activity itself, I'd like to share the criteria that will guide you into making this script. First is the relevance to the topic. The performance exhibits the necessary concept that has been discussed that will garner you 4 points. Then, of course, the use of verbals should be apparent, and the different types should be annotated as well. And that's another 4 points. There should also be organization, which means that the sequence of events must be clear, making the story easier to follow and understand. That's another 4 points. Then there should also be clarity in terms of voice. The use of facial expression should be appropriate, and the blocking should be properly observed. Another 4 points for that one. The last criteria to consider is the quality of acting. Of course, because this is a sketch, I'd like to see how you would embody the character you are trying to portray in front of the class. The lines, the dialogues should be realistic, and the way they are delivered should come across to the audience. And that's another 4 points, which means that this activity will garner you 20 points. Okay, time's up, everyone. Please settle down on your chairs now because we will start the presentation. Okay, who amongst this group will be willing to volunteer into presenting what outputs they have prepared? Okay, it seems that Mr. Nabaunag's group has some preparations in store already. So why not let's give them the floor and watch as their performance unfold. All right. It seems that everyone has already performed this skit. As such, I'd like to congratulate all of you for the job well done. It seems that you already understand and could apply the lessons and integrate them into the scenarios in which is far from what we have discussed. It just shows how capable and how amazing you are as a class. So before we move forward, I'd like to give all of us um, a warm of applause. Okay, are there no more clarifications, reactions, or confusions about the matter that we just have discussed? All right, it seems you are all ready to move on to a new challenge in which to see if you really understood and really put it in your head the topic that we have just talked about. All right. Our test will have three parts, which is relevant to the topic that we have discussed, which is about verbals and its different types. It will have different sections in which the parts are to be tested. So for this, you'll have to get your quiz notebook, and as usual, write your name in the upper header of the sheet, and then on the upper left corner, you will have to input your the date to date and your signature. So I will only read the questions twice, and you will have to listen because otherwise you will have no input for the item. First one. You will just have to choose between three letters which are relevant to the questions that or to the sentence that is being directed to. Number one, A. Researching. B. Having researched. C. Being researched is a skill that entails a lot of readings from different reliable sources. Number one, A. Researching. B. Having researched. C. Being researched is a skill that entails a lot of readings from different reliable sources. Number two, some students enjoy A. Having spent. B. Spending. C. Being spent time reading. Number two, some students enjoy A. Having spent. B. Spending. C. Being spent time reading. Number three, like my classmate Marlon, I congratulated him for A. Being won, B. Having been won, C. Having won first on an online research quiz bee. Number three, like my classmate Marlon, I congratulated him for A. Being won, B. Having been won, C. Having won first on an online research quiz bee. Number four, his dream of A. Winning, B. Having won, C. Being won on a national event has come true. Number four, his dream of A. Winning, B. Having won, C. Being won on a national event has come true. Number five, moreover, we are proud of him for A. Having been, B. Being, C. Have been a good example for others. Number five, moreover, we are proud of him for A. Having been, B. Being, C. Have been a good example for others. So now we move to the second part of our test. This is actually just a fill in the blank. You have to complete the meaning of the following sentence by supplying the missing infinitives. The main idea will be supplied, and the rest it will be up to your imagination and of course jurisdiction. For example, Rona is a typical teenager of today. You can answer she loves to attend parties. Just underline the infinitives, which is to attend. Okay, number one, she prefers blank. Number one, she prefers blank. Number two, she enjoys blank. Number two, she enjoys blank. Number three, she tries blank. Number three, she tries blank. The last part of our test pertains to the participles. To answer the question, you'll have to think in two ways. This is to say that you will answer using present and past participles of the underlying verb. Example, did the game amuse you? The underlying verb will be amuse. So to answer it for the present participle, you would say, yes, they are rather amusing. For the past participle, you would rather say, right, I was rather amused. So let's go to the item. First item, did the proposition in the debate interest you? First item, did the proposition in the debate interest you? Second item, did the news surprise you? Second item, did the news surprise you? Okay, did everyone get the items correctly? Whether or not that may be the case, you will have to submit your book in front and I will have to check it later. Alright, it seems everyone was able to answer the quiz that I have given. So before we leave the class or end this session, I would just like to give you your assignment. This is to further broaden your perspective about the matter at hand. For your assignment, the first thing you should do is to construct a short code that pertains to the importance of education using any of the verbals. For example, ignorance consumes those who cares to learn. The the types of verbal here is the infinitives, which uses to plus the base form of the verb. Then what you should do next is to write a 1,000 word essay about the code you just made. And of course, this goes to show that you will annotate the script, which for the gerund, you will have to encircle it, then you will have to cross out the infinitives, and trap in, in a box the participles, regardless of whether it is a present or a past participle. Am I understood, class? All right. I think we've covered almost everything that is covered in our agenda. So I'd just like to congratulate everyone for participating and for moving closer to their dreams by attending this session. Again, this has been Leonard Patrick Yapet, your temporary English instructor. Goodbye, class.